Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
On a Tuesday morning, it's June 23rd. Great to be with you on a Tuesday and every day here at EWTN's Catholic Connection. So excited about the show. Well, I'm always excited about the show, but especially because we had the opportunity to grab 15 minutes just recently, last Friday as a matter of fact, with His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron from Winona, Rochester, Minnesota, of course, and Word on Fire Ministries, and he's joining us. We sat down to talk about the Grand Getaway at the Grand Hotel this year, which is in August, the 9th through the 11th, and it's a wonderful event, and he is a big part of it. Also, of course, Monsignor Shea is going to be with us. It's going to be just a great, great time, always at the Grand Getaway. But what an opportunity to have some real personal time with this amazing Catholic evangelist, I think one of the best communicators we have today in the church. Bishop Robert Barron will join us for a few minutes. And I did want to mention, I got to this toward the end of the interview when we taped on Friday, that they're offering a great deal that if you decide to go to the Grand Getaway, you can either get to the information through my website, teresatomeo.com, under events, and you can download the brochure and actually register, or you can simply go to ctscentral.net. That stands for Corporate Travel Service. If you mention how you heard about it, if you mention that you heard the interview with Bishop Barron, you heard it on Catholic Connection, and use the word or my name, Teresa, T-E-R, no H, like Teresa of Avila, in caps, they will upgrade you to a lake view room, which is a big deal when you're staying at the Grand Hotel, because there's nothing like being able to wake up in the morning, grab your coffee, and look out over the Straits of Mackinac, the Mackinac Bridge. It is stunning beyond belief. So again, when you register, if you would like an upgrade, you can mention my name, Teresa, when you fill out the form and say how you heard about the Grand Getaway. But Bishop Barron will be up first. And then excited to have Donna Rice Hughes back with us because we're wrapping up the month of June. Can you believe it? Only 7 days left. And June is Internet Safety Month. And Donna Rice Hughes is with Enough is Enough. And she are offering parents so many great guides about smartphones and social media. And then also talking about some recent decisions by countries and states regarding bans on social media. So Donna Rice Hughes joins us. And in hour number 2, the one, the only Steve Ray is going to be joining us on the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul. It is a really cool walkthrough in terms of their lives, their similarities, their differences, and what they mean to us today in the one holy Catholic and apostolic faith. And then for our 2 cents segment, speaking of media issues and that this is June Internet Awareness Month, did you know there's a new study out, just broke last week, that says that parents, mind you, are spending more time on their devices during meals than their own children. So we'll talk about that, and then that's when Steve Ray, after the break, after our 2 cents, will be joining us at Saints Peter and Paul. As for your prayers today, after the show, Deacon Dom and I are hopping on a train in Perugia and heading down to Roma, where we are going to be visiting with Joan, of course. We always stop in and see Joni when we go to Rome, but I'm also presenting tomorrow, Wednesday, for the wonderful EWTN Summer Academy. I am talking to these young people about presenting on radio, TV, and new media, trying to cram 45 years of experience in like 90 minutes. So, but anyway, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I love to talk to young people who are interested in communications. I want to fire them up. I want to give them a lot of, great advice, but then let them, follow their given talents that God has given them and to do what they need to do in terms of the media. So if you could say a few prayers for us that all the technology works tomorrow. I've got some neat videos that I'm going to show for the young people, so would appreciate that. Right now, though, we have to check the weather for you and the news on a Tuesday before we get to our interview. Our first one up again, Bishop Robert Barron. The National Weather Service says severe thunderstorms remaining possible in the Mid-Atlantic through today. Severe storms and heavy rain will also be possible in the central southern plains today and tomorrow. And then we have hazardous heat that will linger across the southern part of the country and build across the west through the middle of this week. And hot and dry weather will create elevated to critical fire weather conditions in the Four Corners region. Let's take a look at the news now here on EWTN on a Tuesday. President Trump says the Iran negotiations are working out very well. Speaking from the Oval Office yesterday, the president said the U.S. is negotiating a fair and reasonable deal. He said the Iranian money being unfrozen by the U.S. will be used to buy food from American farmers. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance is heading back to the nation's capital following those talks in Switzerland. Vance told reporters the discussion set a good foundation for future talks about a number of issues, including curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions.
We have the Iranians allowing weapons inspectors, nuclear inspectors into their country for the first time in a long time.
Vance also saying that the president will be focused on Iran's actions during the next 60-day negotiating window. The vice president insisting that after the weekend talks, mechanisms have been set up to ensure the Strait of Hormuz remains open and regional conflicts between Israel and Hezbollah will not derail the U.S. discussions with Iran. Vance says teams from Iran and the U.S. will remain in Switzerland, though, to continue those negotiations. The heads of the church's continental bodies have gathered in Rome this week for 3 days of meetings dedicated to the next phase of the Synod on Synodality, that according to a press release issued by the General Secretariat of the Synod yesterday. The meeting is taking place through June 25th and brings together representatives of continental ecclesial organizations from Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe, Oceania, the Middle East, and North America. They're accompanied by coordinators of the continental synodal teams. According to the press release, a gathering comes as a church continues the implementation phase of the Synod on Synodality following the conclusion of the Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod back in 2024. And Pope Leo visiting the Vatican's summer camp yesterday, meeting with children and young people taking part in this year's program and answering several questions. The theme is focused on Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. Responding to a question about the difficulty of disconnecting from screens during the school year, the Pope acknowledged the benefits of technology, but stressed it should never take the place of real human interaction. Technology, he said, can be very good and very useful for many things. However, when we are together, it's not necessary to have a mobile phone, smartphone, or a tablet in our hands at every moment. The Pope encouraging the children to spend time together as people rather than through devices. He added it's very important to build friendships, to spend time together, to play together, and perhaps even study together. He added we are human beings, persons, and contact with others is extremely important. Matt Madison tells us House lawmakers are unveiling a bipartisan children's online safety deal following months of discussions.
The Kids Internet and Digital Safety, or KIDS Act, would hold social media companies accountable for the alleged harm their platforms cause minors. A previous version of the legislation advanced out of the House Energy and Commerce Committee with a 28-24 vote in March, but negotiations fell apart between the two sides. However, Committee Chairman Brett Guthrie and Congressman Frank Pallone said they found common ground on policies to significantly improve the digital environment for kids. I'm at Matt and Sen.
And Tammy Trujillo is playing as a judge overseeing the Utah trial of Charlie Kirk's accused murderer is ruling against the defense seeking to use an out-of-state witness in the next hearing.
Lawyers for Tyler Robinson wanted Robinson's former roommate and romantic partner Lance Twiggs to appear for the upcoming July hearing. The judge ruled since that hearing deals with prosecutors showing whether they have enough evidence to move forward with the trial, Twiggs isn't needed. Meanwhile, Judge Tony Graff says he'll rule soon on contempt charges against prosecutors for allegedly violating a gag order by talking to the media. Robinson is accused of fatally shooting Kirk in September at Utah Valley University in Orem. Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
The Texas State Board of Education voting this week on new curriculum that includes references to Scripture. Board member Brandon Hall explains why.
The works that are included on the list are included for their proportional impact that they've had on our laws, our culture, and our society.
But critics claim that there's a concerted effort to teach history from a perspective that highlights Christians' contributions and ignores others. If approved, the new curriculum would go into effect in the year of 2030. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer again stepping down. Molly Hunter reports the announcement yesterday that he's resigning did not come as a major surprise.
We have seen multiple senior cabinet officials band and kind of rebel against Keir Starmer, and our understanding is that Keir Starmer spent the weekend out at his countryside estate with his wife and kids, kind of reflecting on the decision, but clearly arrived to the decision that staying in power, staying in the office of Prime Minister was untenable.
He won a landslide election back in 2024 and has been facing pressure from within his own party. His successor will be Britain's seventh prime minister in the past 10 years. Rival Andy Burnham is the leading candidate to replace Starmer as head of the Labour Party. And former Federal Reserve Chair Alan Greenspan has died at the age of 100. Kirsten Welker reports a New York native received a PhD in economics back in 1977 from NYU and worked as an investment banker before pursuing a career in politics.
In 1987, President Reagan appointed him chairman of the Federal Reserve. Greenspan remained in the post for almost 20 years through the presidencies of Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, and then George W. Bush.
After leaving the Fed, Greenspan formed his own economic consulting firm. In November of 2005, President George W. Bush awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the country. Greenspan passed away as a result of complications from Parkinson's disease. His death was announced earlier by his wife of almost 30 years, NBC News correspondent Andrea Mitchell. Wendy Swanson tells us Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego is being accused of using campaign money for personal use.
An investigative report by Politico says the Democratic senator used campaign cash to fund family trips and for childcare expenses. The outlet says Gallego used $18,000 in funds from his leadership PAC for babysitting reimbursement since 2019. Trips to the Super Bowl, Disneyland, and Disney World were also allegedly paid for. Federal law says politicians can use funding for childcare and travel, but only if it coincides with fundraising events. I'm Wendy Swanson.
There's a major flu outbreak at the home of Air Force Base Basic Training in Texas, and it's now sickened 222 recruits. Experts say it's easy for the virus to spread through the dorms at the Air Force Base.
During the 1918 influenza pandemic, our bases in Texas got hit really hard.
Baylor infectious disease expert Dr. Peter Hotez says it's not too late for the military to start requiring flu vaccinations again. Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro has been updating the flu numbers. He's demanding answers in the Pentagon, which has been tight-lipped. The Senate is approving a massive housing affordability measure with the goal of lowering prices. The bill was approved to 85-5 on Monday in a rare, overwhelmingly bipartisan vote. That bill would cut away some of the red tape and make it easier to build homes, while also putting limits on institutional investors buying up houses. It now goes over to the House for a vote. And a large portion of Los Angeles is dealing with poor air quality thanks to that ongoing warehouse fire. This woman says it reminds her of past wildfires.
It's a little bit re-traumatizing because of the fires that we had in January of 25. So the smell is a little traumatizing. So I'm just really watching the air quality, watching the wind.
The cold food storage warehouse has been burning since last Wednesday afternoon. Air quality officials are urging people who see or smell smoke to remain indoors and to close their windows and doors. Officials are not concerned about smoke, but spoiled food. An estimated 85 million pounds of food, including meat and other perishable products, is starting to spoil. And Bree Tennis tells us we are planning our summer outings, shorts and barbecues and whatnot, but for retailers, it's actually the holiday season all year long.
That's because the traditional retail calendar keeps merchants buying and planning 3 to 6 months in advance. They analyze trends and hope they pick the correct hot item for the upcoming holiday season. The National Retail Federation says they hit the mark about 65% of the time and push the holiday creep early to get you to part with your cash. Last year, Starbucks released its pumpkin spice latte on August 26th, but no pressure. I'm Bree Tennis.
That's a look at the news on a Tuesday, June 23rd. More Catholic Connection coming your way. I cannot tell you how excited I was when we were able to book His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron. Really doesn't need any introduction, but he is a Catholic theologian, author, and media evangelist. Of course, currently serving as Bishop of the Diocese of Winona, Rochester, Minnesota, founder of the amazing Word on Fire Catholic Ministries, and he's going to be our keynote for the upcoming Grand Getaway, and I'm so excited he's going to be joining us. Your Excellency, thank you for being on the program this morning. It's so good to talk to you again.
Hey, Teresa, thank you. Always good to be with you.
All right, so I'm thinking that because you are from Go originally that you're familiar with Mackinac Island. Is that true?
It's true. In fact, my parents had a great affection for it. And when I was a little kid, we lived outside Detroit, in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad took us on a long car trip all the way up through Michigan. And my mother said, there's a place called the Grand Hotel with this big front porch and rocking chairs, and you kids will love that. And Mackinac Bridge and Island. And so we went there when I was 5, 6, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last time I was there. But no, I have great memories of it. My parents loved it.
It's just amazing, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And this getaway, I know you're so familiar with and do a lot of work with John Hill and corporate travel, but this Grand Getaway, Your Excellency, started as like a family thing with a few families and then became so popular. Now we do this every year. So what will you be focusing when you're with us in August for the Grand Getaway?
Well, John asked me to talk about my year with this Religious Liberty Commission, which
Great.
is just ending now. In fact, it's just in a few days I'm going to Washington. The commission will present our report to the president. So John said, why don't you tell us about that, about religious liberty in America, the year with the commission, what you guys talked about, what's on your mind. So that's what I'm going to do. The report will be delivered, and then, I've been, of course, going through the whole year as we produced it. But I'm currently reading it again and looking at our different recommendations. And so I'll do something with that probably.
So here we are on the verge of the beautiful 4th of July holiday and this huge celebration. There's been so much going on in the country, in the church. What are you thinking and what are you seeing? I feel, and I'm sure you as a bishop would agree with this, my husband who's a deacon, you met Deacon Don before, but that there seems to be this revival going on, many different levels and places in the church. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's the kind of evangelical revival going on where you've got people coming back to the church. That's unmistakable now. The numbers are proving it all across the country. But also this confluence, of the 250th anniversary with faith. And something I admire the president and the administration because they've emphasized the connection between the two. And I think that's been a feature of this anniversary year, that people are seeing how the faith inspired the founders, and that you can't really understand our version of democracy without that biblical foundation. So I've noticed that. I think an uptick in people's appreciation of that relationship.
We are talking with His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron from Rochester, Winona, Minnesota, and of course Word on Fire Ministries. Your Excellency, one of the things that's so great about this retreat, and I think you'll notice this, is that it gives, we call it the Grand Getaway, and it really is a getaway. It is designed as a package where you come together as a group of families, basically coming back together and enjoying Mass, enjoying great talks from wonderful people like yourself, but giving this idea that you developed so wonderfully, and with your new film coming out as well, the idea of beauty. I mean, Mackinac Island, especially in August, it's very comfortable, the breeze and whatnot. It's so beautiful. Tell us about the importance of getting away and focusing on beauty for a while.
Well, beauty, I'm more and more convinced, is the first of the transcendentals. We talk about the good, the true, and the beautiful, right? And often in our tradition, the beautiful gets sidelined. We put a lot of stress on the good, how we should behave, the true, what we should believe. But I'm more and more convinced, D.C. Schindler, the great philosopher, has convinced me of this, that it's the first of the transcendentals and maybe the most important, because before you even think about something or before you pursue it as a good, it has to get your attention. It has to sparkle. It has to dazzle you in some way, right? So like von Balthasar, the great theologian really behind this whole idea of the primacy of beauty, he said, it's the smile of your mother that awakens you to the being of the world. It's a very interesting insight to think of a little baby, but the first thing the baby notices is the beautiful smile of his mother. And that gets his attention and opens his mind and heart to the true and the good. Now go across, that's a Catholic instinct, right? Go across Catholic life and you see liturgy and you see cathedrals and you see churches and you see stained glass and you see poetry and drama. And we've used the beautiful as a way in. So I think that remains extremely important.
And what about the getting away factor? Getting away to an island like Mackinac, as you know, no cars allowed, very, very beautiful, very peaceful.
Yeah, well, that's the condition for the possibility. You can't really take in the beautiful if you're caught up in pragmatism, right? And we're a culture that we reverence the pragmatic and the, get down to business and get things done. But if you don't have a contemplative eye, then you can't see the beautiful. And now go back to someone like Josef Pieper, right? Leisure is the basis of culture, he said. It doesn't mean lying in a hammock all day. It means having that calmness of spirit, that contemplative eye that enables you to see the beautiful. And that's why getaways are important. We get away from practicality, and we relax enough that we can really open the eye of contemplation and see the beautiful.
And I'm so excited you're going to be joining us. But along with Your Excellency, we'll also have the great blessing of hearing homilies by Monsignor James Patrick Shea, President of the University of Mary, Rachel Bullman, host of Strong Voices, will be with us, and Father Frankie Cicero, who's a great priest, too, just a dynamic young priest. I wanted to just remind folks, and I don't know if you know this, but I know you like my name. You mentioned that earlier to me, you know, St. Teresa of Avila, but there is actually a special code if people do register through ctscentral.net and they mention Teresa. If you're interested in this event, August 9th through the 11th, you can get an upgrade, Your Excellency, with a lakeview room. What do you think?
I'll take it.
In terms of, I want to talk about your movie. I know we've only got a short amount of time, but I again I'm on your website a lot, and I love your work as a fellow communicator. You again are looking at beauty. This time you're in France, correct? In the movie coming out in September.
Yeah, really excited about that. This was born with the Notre Dame fire, so back in 2019. And what I noticed, you know, after the heartbreak of the fire, was the way the whole world got galvanized by it. The whole world was interested in Notre Dame and was heartsick about it. And it just occurred to me there's a deep reason for that. It's not just, this, attractive old building was going to burn down. People sensed something of great spiritual moment would be lost, So I wrote a script explaining why these Gothic buildings were so powerful. Well, then COVID happened and I was transferred here, and so we couldn't film. But we finally, last summer, were able to go over to France, and we filmed for about 10 days in 5 of the really great cathedrals. And I just kind of explore the spirituality and theology of the cathedrals as we show them, right? Well, then it got picked up by Fathom Entertainment. We were delighted. And they're going to get it in September on like 1,000 screens or more.
1,000 theaters, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so to see it on the big screen, which is the way you should see it, we're very excited about that. And my hope is that it just reacquaints people with the beauty of these churches, but also inspires them to create beautiful churches now.
I also think, too, and you know this as someone who leads pilgrimages and you spend so much time in these great places, that we don't have to do much in terms of, I always look at it as, okay, God, do your thing. And you bring them to these magnificent cathedrals, basilicas, these sites that are connected to our faith in the saints. And you just let people be. And you can ask the questions, the guides are there, but just to bring them to those places.
I remember we were in Amiens, which is one of the most massive and beautiful of those cathedrals in France. And I was exiting, coming out from the building, and these 2 young women, probably like 19, 20, came in. I think they were Americans. And I just saw them. They immediately looked up, and their mouths kind of fell open. And I thought, isn't it amazing how in this time with skyscrapers and we're so used to, massive buildings, but still the building had that effect on these young, kids. I thought, boy, imagine in the 13th century what it was like to enter one of those buildings. So they still work, and I want to reintroduce people to that.
Do you have a favorite, whether it's France, Italy, Spain? Do you have a favorite basilica or cathedral?
Oh, Chartres is my favorite, yeah.
Okay.
So we ended up our filming at Chartres. No, we ended up at Notre Dame, but Chartres is my favorite, one of my favorite places on planet Earth. And when I was a student in Paris, I got down to Chartres whenever I could. To me, it's the gateway to heaven. Chartres is that's the way into heaven.
Well,
Which
I know
is
you
what
have
they were
to.
meant to be.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Hence my title, Heaven in Stone and Glass. They were meant to be seen as a gateway to heaven.
Yes, and all the information on the film is on the website, of course, wordonfire.org. And don't forget ctscentral.net and the special code for an upgrade, Teresa, when you tell them why or how you found out about it. And Bishop Barron will be our keynote. It's going to be a great weekend. ctscentral.net. So appreciate the great work of Donna Rice Hughes. She's president and CEO of Enough is Enough. Boy, we have a lot to discuss today, especially in this month of June. So much going on. June is Internet Safety Month. Also, there were some recent decisions, a big one in Florida regarding TikTok, a big one in the UK regarding another country banning social media for teens under 16. And then we don't want to end this interview without mentioning the wonderful tools that Donna has for families along so many areas in terms of internet safety and protection. Donna, let's start with the story out of Florida with the TikTok decision. Tell us about that and your thoughts.
Well, it's a very positive move. Florida actually has a state law, which is absolutely terrific, and they require social media platforms to restrict access. It's not a ban, just to restrict access to kids under, I believe it's 14 years old in Florida. And even Meta complied with this law. But the Attorney General filed a lawsuit just this week against TikTok because TikTok did not comply. So there are fines associated for noncompliance. So now, is my understanding, according to the news articles, that TikTok has now alerted kids under 14 that they no longer have access to TikTok. So this is a really, really good move for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it shows our Congress at the federal level that we can do this, that there is a will, there's a desire for parents to be able to have some help to help them manage their kids' time online, because kids are not supposed to be on any of these social media platforms if they're under 13 years old.
Right.
That's U.S. law, but these companies do not have age verification technologies, and they are not enforcing the law. So your 8-year-old daughter can go set up a TikTok or a Meta account or an Instagram or anything else. So that's just the way it's been since the advent of social media. But we do not have a federal law like that in place. But they are doing this for nations in other nations, Australia, UK.
So yeah, speaking of the UK, United Kingdom just on Monday has a social media ban. It doesn't take place for a little while, but they announced this, and the Prime Minister was talking, basically sounded a lot like you and raising concerns. Do you think the United States is eventually going to do something like this, ban social media for young people under 16? What do you think?
Well, let me just tell you, no, not right now. And here's why. There has been a wonderful piece of legislation, co-sponsored by Senator Blackburn and Senator Blumenthal, bipartisan. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat. All these laws are bipartisan. Let me just say that about this, okay? It's called the Kids Online Safety Act. It does not go nearly as far as saying kids under a certain age cannot be on these platforms, and you have to age verify and ban and all this kind of stuff. It is basically requiring platforms to have a duty of care, to have the parental controls and the defaults turned on to the strictest safety settings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's been introduced now for the third Congress, right now, okay? It was passed last year, went to the House of Representatives, and the House did not pass it. They did not push it through. There was a lot of pushback. So it's back on the table again in the Senate. The House has got their own version. I call it K Street COSA, because it looks like it's written by big tech, right? It actually probably does worse than anything at all. So that's where our Congress is. So to have them go as far as Florida has gone, and other states have gone, in the UK and Australia was the first nation to do this, I just don't see it happening since we can't even get COSA passed.
I want to get your response to these great quotes from the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Starmer, who said, among other things, every parent can see it with their own eyes. Social media is making children unhappy. He has 2 teenage children of his own, and he told reporters, I've heard firsthand from families crying out for change, and we will do right by them. I mean, obviously, he's feeling it as well. I mean, it is so obvious in terms of what's going on. That's why we need this. So in terms of the follow-up, I know Australia was the first. That's been a while. It's been a couple of months that it's been in effect. How long do you think it will take before we see, like, the evidence, the good evidence from this, the good positive fallout in terms of the impact these measures have on families and teens, do you think, Donna?
I don't know. I mean, I believe that parents are going to see an immediate change, because we already know the data shows that just limiting screen time and having detox just from screens, regardless of social media, online gaming, and everything else, it starts to have immediate effect. I mean, the kids may go through detox. I mean, they're going through detox. It's like getting them off a drug, right? But once they detox from the screens or detox from the addictive algorithms of social media, I think parents are going to see immediate results. How that is measured on a national scale or whatever, who knows? Somebody's got to measure it first.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any type of, there may be, if there's any type of a place where people can, in these different countries now that have these bans, have had them for a while, that can share their own testimonies of the positive results, because that would be really cool to hear different testimonies. Okay, we only have about 3 minutes left, and I want to give you the time to talk about the wonderful guides, the safety guides that you have available for parents in different areas in terms of media, social media.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, we realize that enough is enough, that parents are still the first line of defense. We do want government to do what they can, and we need these big tech companies to be regulated because they won't voluntarily do anything on their own. They've had 2 decades to show that they're not going to do this on their own. Okay, so we've got a lot of interactive guides. First, let me give you InternetSafety101.org. Just think InternetSafety101.org. This is a one-stop shop for you, parents and grandparents and teachers, of anything you need to know about the dangers of kids online and how to keep them safe. Now, we created these interactive guides. We call them navigable guides. We've got one for social media, one for online gaming, one for smartphones, where we've listed the popular platforms, for instance, on social media, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. And we go through all the features that they offer or don't offer. Then we link to tutorials for you to learn how to use those features, because, again, they're not turned on right now. So if you want to filter on, which is what we recommend, and you want time-limiting features, and you want to monitor and do a lot of the block apps, for instance, you've got to go do it yourself as a parent. So these guides show you how to do that on social media platforms and on online gaming platforms. Then we did a whole nother guide for smartphones for children and teens. That includes your Apple and your Android, of course, but it's also got these phones designed by these companies like Bark and Gab and TrueMe that have designed their phones with child safety in mind. They have a lot better safety features, and they're just terrific. So again, we've got tutorials. You can compare, when you're shopping. I mean, I think parents need to be shopping for, what am I going to let my kids on or not? Then let me just say right now, if it's online gaming, social media, etc., they're not supposed to be on those platforms anyway until they're 13 years old. Yeah. And we do recommend limiting screen time. We also have a family contract that you can change for yourself. But if your kids are online, I don't care if they're 7 years old, even though I don't like them on at 7 years old, or 16, have that family contract. Know what they're doing on a regular basis and be that trusted person. Because if your kids are online every day, you need to be having those conversations every day to protect your kids.
Donna, this is so helpful because it's exhausting. And you're a grandparent. I'm a great aunt. And I know it's a challenge. It's a challenge for adults. It's easy for us to get addicted to whether it's, constant scrolling or, watching certain things, online. So you make it so easy for parents because they need the help. But I am glad to see some of these other countries, at least, and states coming through for parents as well.
Oh, it's so important. I mean, our strategy since I began in 1994 has been you've got to have a shared responsibility. There's a holistic approach, right? Big tech needs to do their part, government, law enforcement needs to do their part, and parents need to do their part, and it starts with parents.
You're the best. Donna Rice Hughes, Enough is Enough, President and CEO. We'll be right back. Enough.org is the website. We're hearing all kinds of stories about media influence and how some people are finally waking up. There's several countries that have banned social media for younger people just yesterday. There's a big story out of the UK regarding just that. So the topic this morning with our guest, Nicholas Senz with the Colby Academy, Homeschool Academy, has to do with choosing authentic Catholic education in the age of AI. And Nicholas, I would think in addition to AI, all the media influences we have out there can really form our children as opposed to letting us form them. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so tell us first of all about the Colby Academy before we let you answer that question so people know where to find you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Well, Colby Academy is an online school which also has homeschool options, asynchronous options, live online options. We have a variety of ways that we deliver our authentically Catholic, classical, customizable, home-based school. We partner with families, remembering always that parents are the primary educators of their children. We are cooperating with them and to help to form their children to be faithful in the world that they are going to launch into.
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Now you can go ahead and answer my initial question. Go ahead.
No worries. I appreciate the opportunity for the plug. No worries.
Sure.
So, yes, you're absolutely right. And Pope Leo has mentioned this in his first encyclical that we recently got to read, where he talks not only about AI, which we know has been a big concern of his from the beginning. He mentioned it, concerns about AI, as one of the reasons that he chose his regnal name of Pope Leo, calling back to Pope Leo XIII, who faced a lot of new things, right? Rerum novarum on new things in his own time. And that we are facing a lot of new challenges related to technology in our own day, not only with AI, but with social media, with all of these ways that these new digital technologies affect the way that we consume information, the way that we process information, the way that we see ourselves and interact with other people. So all of these new technologies are absolutely a major challenge for us to face, to ensure that we can hang on to our humanity as we try to deal with these different technologies.
How would we explain what Catholic formation is and what it isn't? What do you think?
What it is and what it isn't, that's a good way to put it. Always good to have kind of a foil there. Catholic education is focused on forming a person according to the truths that we know that we have revealed to us in the Catholic faith. So keeping those core principles at our center, that human beings are made in the image and likeness of God, that we are made ultimately for the purpose of communion with God, that the world that we are in, that God has placed us, is in itself good, but is a secondary good to God himself. And so the world can tell us about God, the world can glorify God, but we can also, if we focus too much on the things of this world and place them on the top of the ladder, then we can miss what is our ultimate good, which is God himself. So everything within a Catholic education, every approach to every discipline, whether that's English literature or science or mathematics or whatever it might be, is all has that at its center, is seeing the world through a Catholic lens, you might say.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's so difficult to try and do actual work without AI influence. I mean, every time you do a search for anything, all these different summaries come up and Copilot and all of this, and that's got to have an impact on education, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's all too tempting for a student who's just trying to do some basic research, even looking at the meaning of a word, and then they have come up at the top of their search there a little AI-generated summary, and you have to teach them what things you can use, what things you can't use. At what point is this AI agent doing the work for you? And so this is a big part of our approach at Colby Academy in instructing our students and trying to combat this problem, because all of our students are human, and some of them fall to the temptation to have an AI agent write a paper for them. So in addition to our kind of post-facto detection attempts to try to ferret out if a paper may have been written by AI, we're also trying a preventative approach, very much wrapped up in our focus on virtue and formation in virtue, reminding our students that the purpose of an assignment is not just to get it done, but that the doing of the assignment itself is part of the goal. And doing the process of thinking, of organizing, of wrestling with different texts and thinking through them is part of the purpose of producing the assignment. So that even if a student makes a mistake and we catch them using AI, we have them do the assignment over again, even if they're not getting any points for it, because we are reiterating to them that the purpose is to do the assignment. And so we still want them to get that formative experience of doing the assignment. So that emphasis on virtue is very much at the center of our approach.
We are speaking with Nicholas Senz, the head of the theology department for Colby Academy. The website is colby.org. Colby Academy is an authentically Catholic, as you heard, classical and customizable home-based school serving families around the world through live online classes, flexible courses, and support for traditional homeschooling families. So if they go to the website, they find all of this information, correct?
Absolutely.
And in terms of Maximilian Kolbe, by the way, is one of my favorites because he knew how to embrace the media and to use it wisely. What a great example for you at your academy.
Exactly. Yep. And we, of course, have a great focus on St. Maximilian Kolbe. And the students know his story, that he used the technologies of his time to be able to combat the evils of his time and also to work towards the good. And that he is a good reminder to us that technology is a tool that can be used for a variety of purposes. Using a tool well can glorify God. It can achieve an end well. But using a tool poorly can be counterproductive. A chainsaw is very good for cutting wood. It's not good for cutting your toenails. That would be counterproductive. So teaching our students about the proper use of a tool and asking those deeper questions. What is it I'm trying to achieve? What is this tool for? Is it helping me or is it doing the work for me? If I started up a treadmill and then set a robot on it to run it, I can't then say, well, I ran on the treadmill. No, I didn't. The robot ran on
I would
it
like
for
to
me.
say that. That would be nice if I could do
wouldn't it be? But the robot running on the treadmill isn't going to get me any healthier.
Exactly.
Just so an AI agent writing a paper for me isn't going to make me any smarter or any wiser or any more virtuous.
Very true. So how large now in terms of numbers? What's your outreach in terms of the academy?
Oh, gosh. That is a number I should have had handy to me. We have students all over the country. We even have international students. I've had students in class from the Philippines, from Spain, from countries in South America. So we've got a very wide reach, and we've been growing in the last several years.
How did this all begin?
How did the School of Kolbe begin?
Yeah, how did the Holy Academy start? Whose idea was it?
Oh, sure. Well, it started out actually as a brick-and-mortar school in California, and then expanded out to a homeschool that would mail out paper texts and syllabi to families. And then several years ago, we started the online version of the school. So we've been expanding in different directions, trying to serve families and help them to bring a Catholic education to their children in all kinds of different ways and formats that work for them.
What kind of feedback? I imagine you've gotten very good feedback over the years since you've been operating.
Yeah, we've been very blessed to hear from families how much we've affected them. Hearing from students how much their theology classes have really helped them to grow in their faith, which is so important to us, and especially for us in the theology department, that we don't just want to fill their heads with facts about God, but we want to help them to come to know God. St. Thomas talks about the difference between knowing about God and knowing God. I tell the students it's like going onto somebody's Facebook page. You could learn a lot about them, but you don't actually know them yet. So I tell them, we don't want to stalk God. We want to actually come to know God. And we've heard from students how often our classes have helped them to come to know God better and deepen in their faith.
Is it difficult because most of this is taught online, correct? Is some in person or is it all online?
We have a couple of different varieties of ways to do the school. So some is the homeschool or a digital homeschool. They're asynchronous courses where students are watching recorded lectures. And then there's the live online option where students are in a digital classroom with teachers like myself lecturing to them, and they're interacting with each other, over a microphone, over video, in chat boxes, things like that. So it can be a bit of an adjustment, both for teachers and students moving into that digital space. But we work very hard to really build a community in those digital spaces.
So how do you do that? How do you go about building a community?
We interact with our students and try to share on a personal level and engage with them, really get to know them. I always love every year getting to know my students and asking them about themselves and finding out our students are, competitive musicians or athletes, or some of them tell us, oh, I'm writing a novel. Great, tell us about that. And, taking even those few minutes in class time to share about ourselves and really get to know each other. Even if we are thousands of miles apart physically, we can still get to know each other in those ways.
I think it's so important to help young people, and I'm giving a long talk next week for the EWTN Summer Academy to young journalists, and I really want to impress upon them whether these are the best of the best. The cream of the crop get chosen for this, so they're probably already like your students in the sense, but to really appreciate the research and the ability to step away and think and connect the dots. As you say, not just information. Okay, why is this way? What happens? And where do we go from here? To have that thought process, being able to have a thought process is huge. And there's a lack of that today.
Well, absolutely. And this is something we emphasize in our courses. And again, especially in theology, where we are frequently referring back to St. Thomas Aquinas. And I'll remind the students, St. Thomas, say in the Summa Theologiae, he is presenting objections, counter-arguments, and he is presenting them in the strongest possible way to say, someone who, say, opposes the church's position, well, why do they? What are their reasons? And again, he presents that in a steel man way, not in a straw man way, and then responds to it. So walking our students through that, I remind them, this is the way that you have to engage with others, engage with the world. When you hear a contrary opinion, you don't just dismiss it. You have to think through, why does this person think differently? And find out, say, where the error in reasoning is, or where the false premise is, where the misunderstanding is. And then you not only understand the other person better, but understand yourself and your own position better. You can grow in wisdom rather than just simply reflexively dismissing something. You can actually grow in wisdom that way.
Yeah, and I mean, in this world, we just see people, if they disagree, they have a disagreement of opinion, then they just walk away, or worse. So, super important. Thank you so much for this. Okay, how do we get all the information we need about the Kolbe Academy? Just go to the website?
Yeah, we've got everything there on the website, kolbe.org. You can find out about our curricula. We've got descriptions and backgrounds on all of our instructors. Everything you need would be right there, and we have our friendly staff who is reachable by phone or email to give you more information.
All right. Well, it's a great conversation. Thanks for all you do, Nicholas Senz, Theology Department Chair of Kolbe Academy, and again, kolbe.org. We'll be right back to let you know what's coming up on a Wednesday edition of Catholic Connection. Thanks so much for tuning in to a Tuesday morning edition, first hour of Catholic Connection. And don't forget to check out the Grand Hotel Getaway. You can go to my website, teresatomeo.com, to the event section, or to ctscentral.net. And I think you're going to enjoy hour number 2 as well. As I mentioned, Steve Ray will be with us on Saints Peter and Paul. But then we also want to take a look at media again. We discussed a lot with Donna Rice Hughes in this first hour of Catholic Connection on a Tuesday morning. But we're going to dive into it even more deeply because of this new study that I mentioned at the top of the hour, which to me is just incredible, and not in a good way, that parents are spending more time on their devices during mealtime, which is so crucial for all of us to have that real face time with our families at the dinner table. And with that in mind, I was delighted when I was speaking to my niece and nephew, Andrew and Erica, the parents, of course, of the girls, the twins, whom I talk about so much, and their baby sister, Danica. They took them to see the new Toy Story movie, and they said it was such a great message and a real boost for parents who are trying to get a handle on social media and their kids and cell phones and all the technology issues that come up, because there was a beautiful message in this about getting back to basics, especially when it comes to playing with toys versus doing everything online. And so we'll tie that in with the study that I just mentioned on parents being on devices more than their kids during meals. And then, of course, Steve Ray is joining us on the feast of St. Peter and Paul. All that coming up in hour number 2 on EW Radio Extra on a Tuesday. See you in a bit.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tamio.
And it is a Tuesday, continuing our programming here on hour number 2. Great to be with you on a Tuesday morning, Tuesday, June 23rd. And as I mentioned, after this hour, hopping on a train and heading down to Rome. Hopefully they're not on strike today. We did check. So far, all is good. They tend to take strikes now and then, just when they feel like it. Usually they use it as a ponte. I think we're okay because it's a Tuesday. If it were a Monday, I'd be more worried because what they do, ponte means bridge in Italian, and they usually try to take time off, and so they announce their strikes, and then the different rail lines, the different transportation company take turns. So one group will take, a ponte or a bridge to a long weekend or a holiday, and then they'll have another group do it another time. So you always have to check, little insider tip, to see if the trains and planes and automobiles are running on time, and the buses, of course, in Italy. Anyhow, I digress. Looking forward to the program today. Speaking of Italy, we'll be spending some time there with our very own Steve Ray, author, speaker, convert, and of course, wonderful pilgrimage leader. We're going to be talking about, in great detail, the feasts of Saints Peter and Paul. And speaking of Italy, when you come to Rome in particular, you always see the saints together. And when you go to St. Peter's Square, for example, you see St. Peter on the left if you're facing the church, and St. Paul on the right, these huge, giant, beautiful statues. And St. Peter was actually martyred in that area, upside down, looking at the obelisk that is still there today. St. Paul, however, was martyred in what's now known as the Church of Tre Fontani, the Three Fountains, because legend and tradition in the church tells us, more tradition than it is legend, because we know that he was beheaded, that his head bounced 3 times and 3 fountains grew out of where his head landed. I know it sounds gruesome, but that's the story behind Tre Fontani, or the Three Fountains Church in Rome. So we'll talk about St. Peter's, Tre Fontani, also St. Paul outside the walls, which is another major basilica. That is where St. Paul is actually buried. But we'll also talk about their similarities and their differences. So we'll be spending a good portion with Steve, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So for 2 cents, as I mentioned, we are going to get some encouragement, especially if you're a parent or a grandparent or a great auntie and uncle, as in my case and Deacon Dom's case, and concerned about young people's use of media. You want to maybe go to see Toy Story. The movie is open now. I haven't seen it yet, but my nephew and his wife Erica, our sweet niece Erica, took the girls, the twins, Lily and Francesca, and then their baby daughter, Danica, who's 5 years old already. They took them to see the movie Toy Story, and I was talking to my niece Erica over the weekend, and she said that it was such a great message, and it really supports parents because it shows how important it is to help kids get back to the basics of playing with actual toys versus doing everything online. And there's a lesson in there for parents too, because she told me in the movie, in the start of the movie, you see Woody, of course, the main character, who's been played by Tom Hanks, looking around the world and seeing all the people, not just children, but all the people who are on devices, even when they're together in the home. And we'll tie that in with a new study regarding parents spending more time online on their devices during dinner than their own kids. So that is the program for today. A look at this new study and some help from Toy Story, of all things, another form of media giving you help to help control the media in your home. And then a beautiful time with our dear friend Steve Ray on Saints Peter and Paul. Right now, though, we need to check the weather for you and the news for you, as we always do every day. So here we go. The National Weather Service says severe thunderstorms remaining possible in the Mid-Atlantic through today. Severe storms and heavy rain will also be possible in the central southern plains today and tomorrow. And then we have hazardous heat that will linger across the southern part of the country and build across the west through the middle of this week. And hot and dry weather will create elevated to critical fire weather conditions in the Four Corners region. Let's take a look at the news now here on EWTN on a Tuesday. President Trump says the Iran negotiations are working out very well. Speaking from the Oval Office yesterday, the president said the U.S. is negotiating a fair and reasonable deal. He said the Iranian money being unfrozen by the U.S. will be used to buy food from American farmers. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance is heading back to the nation's capital following those talks in Switzerland. Vance told reporters the discussion set a good foundation for future talks about a number of issues, including curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions.
We have the Iranians allowing weapons inspectors, nuclear inspectors into their country for the first time in a long time.
Vance also saying that the president will be focused on Iran's actions during the next 60-day negotiating window. The vice president insisting that after the weekend talks, mechanisms have been set up to ensure the Strait of Hormuz remains open and regional conflicts between Israel and Hezbollah will not derail the U.S. discussions with Iran. Vance says teams from Iran and the U.S. will remain in Switzerland, though, to continue those negotiations. The heads of the church's continental bodies have gathered in Rome this week for 3 days of meetings dedicated to the next phase of the Synod on Synodality, that according to a press release issued by the General Secretariat of the Synod yesterday. The meeting is taking place through June 25th and brings together representatives of continental ecclesial organizations from Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe, Oceania, the Middle East, and North America. They're accompanied by coordinators of the continental synodal teams. According to the press release, a gathering comes as a church continues the implementation phase of the Synod on Synodality following the conclusion of the Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod back in 2024. And Pope Leo visiting the Vatican's summer camp yesterday, meeting with children and young people taking part in this year's program and answering several questions. The theme is focused on Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. Responding to a question about the difficulty of disconnecting from screens during the school year, the Pope acknowledged the benefits of technology, but stressed it should never take the place of real human interaction. Technology, he said, can be very good and very useful for many things. However, when we are together, it's not necessary to have a mobile phone, smartphone, or a tablet in our hands at every moment. The Pope encouraging the children to spend time together as people rather than through devices. He added it's very important to build friendships, to spend time together, to play together, and perhaps even study together. He added we are human beings, persons, and contact with others is extremely important. Matt Madison tells us House lawmakers are unveiling a bipartisan children's online safety deal following months of discussions.
The Kids Internet and Digital Safety, or KIDS Act, would hold social media companies accountable for the alleged harm their platforms cause minors. A previous version of the legislation advanced out of the House Energy and Commerce Committee with a 28-24 vote in March, but negotiations fell apart between the two sides. However, Committee Chairman Brett Guthrie and Congressman Frank Pallone said they found common ground on policies to significantly improve the digital environment for kids. I'm at Matt and Sen.
And Tammy Trujillo is playing as a judge overseeing the Utah trial of Charlie Kirk's accused murderer is ruling against the defense seeking to use an out-of-state witness in the next hearing.
Lawyers for Tyler Robinson wanted Robinson's former roommate and romantic partner Lance Twiggs to appear for the upcoming July hearing. The judge ruled since that hearing deals with prosecutors showing whether they have enough evidence to move forward with the trial, Twiggs isn't needed. Meanwhile, Judge Tony Graff says he'll rule soon on contempt charges against prosecutors for allegedly violating a gag order by talking to the media. Robinson is accused of fatally shooting Kirk in September at Utah Valley University in Orem. Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
The Texas State Board of Education voting this week on new curriculum that includes references to Scripture. Board member Brandon Hall explains why.
The works that are included on the list are included for their proportional impact that they've had on our laws, our culture, and our society.
But critics claim that there's a concerted effort to teach history from a perspective that highlights Christians' contributions and ignores others. If approved, the new curriculum would go into effect in the year of 2030. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer again stepping down. Molly Hunter reports the announcement yesterday that he's resigning did not come as a major surprise.
We have seen multiple senior cabinet officials band and kind of rebel against Keir Starmer. And our understanding is that Keir Starmer spent the weekend out at his countryside estate with his wife and kids, kind of reflecting on the decision, but clearly arrived to the decision that staying in power, staying in the office of Prime Minister was untenable.
He won a landslide election back in 2024 and has been facing pressure from within his own party. His successor will be Britain's seventh prime minister in the past 10 years. Rival Andy Burnham is the leading candidate to replace Starmer as head of the Labour Party. And a former Federal Reserve Chair, Alan Greenspan, has died at the age of 100. Kirsten Welker reports a New York native received a PhD in economics back in 1977 from NYU and worked as an investment banker before pursuing a career in politics.
In 1987, President Reagan appointed him chairman of the Federal Reserve. Greenspan remained in the post for almost 20 years through the presidencies of Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, and then George W. Bush.
After leaving the Fed, Greenspan formed his own economic consulting firm. In November of 2005, President George W. Bush awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the country. Greenspan passed away as a result of complications from Parkinson's disease. His death was announced earlier by his wife of almost 30 years, NBC News correspondent Andrea Mitchell. Wendy Swanson tells us Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego is being accused of using campaign money for personal use.
An investigative report by Politico says the Democratic senator used campaign cash to fund family trips and for childcare expenses. The outlet says Gallego used $18,000 in funds from his leadership PAC for babysitting reimbursement since 2019. Trips to the Super Bowl, Disneyland, and Disney World were also allegedly paid for. Federal law says politicians can use funding for childcare and travel, but only if it coincides with fundraising events. I'm Wendy Swanson.
There's a major flu outbreak at the home of Air Force Base Basic Training in Texas, and it's now sickened 222 recruits. Experts say it's easy for the virus to spread through the dorms at the Air Force Base.
During the 1918 influenza pandemic, our bases in Texas got hit really hard.
Baylor infectious disease expert Dr. Peter Hotez says it's not too late for the military to start requiring flu vaccinations again. Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro has been updating the flu numbers. He's demanding answers in the Pentagon, which has been tight-lipped. The Senate is approving a massive housing affordability measure with the goal of lowering prices. The bill was approved to 85-5 on Monday in a rare, overwhelmingly bipartisan vote. That bill would cut away some of the red tape and make it easier to build homes, while also putting limits on institutional investors buying up houses. It now goes over to the House for a vote. And a large portion of Los Angeles is dealing with poor air quality thanks to that ongoing warehouse fire. This woman says it reminds her of past wildfires.
It's a little bit re-traumatizing because of the fires that we had in January of 25. So the smell is a little traumatizing. So I'm just really watching the air quality, watching the wind.
The cold food storage warehouse has been burning since last Wednesday afternoon. Air quality officials are urging people who see or smell smoke to remain indoors and to close their windows and doors. Officials are not concerned about smoke but spoiled food. An estimated 85 million pounds of food, including meat and other perishable products, is starting to spoil. And Bree Tennis tells us we are planning our summer outings, shorts and barbecues and whatnot, but for retailers, it's actually the holiday season all year long.
That's because the traditional retail calendar keeps merchants buying and planning 3 to 6 months in advance. They analyze trends and hope they pick the correct hot item for the upcoming holiday season. The National Retail Federation says they hit the mark about 65% of the time and push the holiday creep early to get you to part with your cash. Last year, Starbucks released its pumpkin spice latte on August 26th, but no pressure. I'm Bree Tennis.
That's a look at the news on a Tuesday, June 23rd. More Catholic Connection coming your way. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to the second hour of Catholic Connection for Tuesday, June 23rd. And it was a great day to be with you. Hour number 2. Our 2 cent segment. So late last week, there was yet another study regarding media issues, and especially for families. And this one, I'm telling you, this was really interesting. You've heard all about the different bans that are going on, and that the United Kingdom just recently, just the beginning of last week, announced a ban on social media for young people under 16. That's been done in Australia. Also, I believe, India. I think we're far away from that, as Donna Rice Hughes said earlier from Enough is Enough. But the awareness is growing. And this study, I think, should grab your attention as well as the attention of the experts. Parents are on devices during meals even more than their children. Yes, you heard correctly. So all these other efforts are aimed at helping young people, which is huge, but all of us can do a better job of spending less time on devices and more time, real FaceTime with each other versus being on our phone or our device, whatever it is. Once the school pickup routine begins in the afternoon, it can feel like mental arithmetic, getting everyone to the right place at the right time. One child has math tutoring from 2 to 4, then it's straight to soccer practice, the other has dance, and then the whole family is at home until after 9 p.m., and then somewhere in there you're supposed to eat Taco Tuesday leftovers together as a family. When families consistently share meals, experts say they enjoy an abundance of benefits, such as improved emotional satisfaction and healthier diets, but finding the time to sit down together every night can sound like a tall order. Even for those families that manage to make a shared meal a reality, the pervasive use of media such as smartphones and TVs during that mealtime is yet another factor that hampers connections. Okay, so here's the details on this new study. According to a new study that surveyed over 350 parents, more than 75%, that's a pretty high statistic, folks, 75% reported media usage during their last family meal, with the most common type being a smartphone. Additionally, the parents reported their children, ages ranging from 4 to 10, were almost as likely to have used their media, with nearly 70% of children also engaging in some form of media use. The findings were published last week by the Journal of American Medical Association, more specifically JAMA Pediatrics. Media use is finding its way, according to this report, into our lives more than we may realize. Now, researchers have established that when families consistently sit down together to eat, the whole family experiences numerous benefits, including healthier eating, lower risk of substance abuse among teenagers, and great emotional satisfaction. So interesting that this is still an issue and such a challenge for all of us. I mean, we're all busy. Years ago, when my first book, Noise, came out in 2007, I actually interviewed the head of the Center for Addiction and Substance Abuse. That book was obviously called Noise, if you remember it, my very first book. And the head then of the Center for Addiction and Substance Abuse said and told me, and I have that quote in the book, if I could get parents, I'm somewhat paraphrasing, I don't have the book in front of me, but if I can get parents to sit down with their children without any media interference at least once or twice a week, he said, I believe we could practically wipe out substance abuse. That's how important it is. And it's so important that for many years there has been a national campaign called the Family Meals Movement that was begun, several years ago. And on this page, they have all kinds of great ideas, meal prep, how to make sure you can still have a decent mealtime with your family. It is a wonderful, wonderful website. It's fmi.org. So we're going to play the video on the homepage just to give you some background in terms of how important family mealtime really is, especially when it comes to keeping mealtime media free. Take a listen.
So much has changed over the last many decades. We've witnessed shifts in how we prepare meals, how we acquire them, how we learn, and how we communicate. The way we spend time with family has transformed, and the makeup of families today is often very different from what it was in the past. Yet amidst all these changes, one beautiful constant remains: the profound power and impact of family meals.
Family meals offer a much-needed refuge from the busyness and chaos of our daily lives. They create moments of peace, instill confidence, and foster connection, drawing us closer together. These moments at the table strengthen us physically, emotionally, and socially. Whether you define family as the one you were born into or the ones you form along the way, gathering over a meal makes us feel nurtured, helps us heal, allows us to celebrate, and deepens our capacity to love. We know that making time for these shared meals hasn't always been easy. With advancements in technology, mobility, accessibility, and commercialism, our need for speed and ease increased. The food industry responded, making family meals more convenient, achievable, even more nutritious and delicious. And to bring America back to rekindle that undeniable warmth and connection that only family meals can provide, reminding us of the importance of coming together, National Family Meals Month and the Family Meals Movement was born. We encourage you to join or continue to join the FMI Foundation in educating about the benefits of family meals and inspiring even more families across America to gather around the table.
Again, that's a great website with tons of information, fmi.org, and it's part of the Family Meals movement. All right, so if you're looking for some more support, and this is interesting, believe it or not, this is coming from Hollywood, and the latest Toy Story, this is Toy Story number 5, which came out over the weekend, is doing, I guess, gangbusters at the box office. And my nephew Andrew and his beautiful wife, our niece Erica, who were FaceTiming over the weekend, and they were, speaking of media, we were talking about the movie, and she said, Aunt Tree, she said, it is such an encouragement for parents. It really gives you the shot in the arm you need. And she said, it's a shot in the arm two ways, not only encouraging the children to play with their toys and get back to basics, but reminding parents, because a number of the scenes show families all using their devices. She said, so it's a real lesson for everyone. Sounds like that study we just mentioned. So let's take a listen to the trailer from the Toy Story 5 movie that was just released.
Do you, Forky, to Kira and Beverly to be your beloved bride?
Yeah! I now pronounce you husband and knife. Who poisoned the maid of honor?
Bonnie, there's a package for you.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Hi there, I'm Lilypad. Let's play.
Oh, extinction, not again.
Bonnie, screen time's over now.
Okay.
I want to talk to you, device.
Please, call me Lily.
Me and the toys have been working all summer to try and get Bonnie to make friends.
Yeah.
But then you had to ruin
Got
it.
it.
You're not even listening to me.
I'm always listening. See?
Now look here, me and the toys have been working all summer.
Now in Spanish.
Con los gemelos Jordan, al otro lado del
What?
Yeah, I got dibs on behind the dresser.
Woody!
Jesse, hello?
Is it as bad out there for toys as they say it is?
We're finding more abandoned toys each day.
We're down! Tex invaded our house, too.
I don't know, Jesse. Toys are for play, but tech is for everything.
I'm losing Bonnie to this device.
You got a friend in me.
Woody!
Came here as fast as I could.
Why are you wearing a dress, Woody?
It's called a poncho, Forky. Whoa!
Someone needs a brown marker.
Halt! Who goes there? Whoa, whoa, whoa! I come in peace.
It's been too long, cowboy.
What are you, some sort of old man toy?
What?
She thinks you're old because you're bald, Woody.
Bonnie needs help from someone at least from the same century. So long, toys.
We're gonna need backup. No way. She's getting away, boss! Our mission on this planet is to make a child happy.
Bonnie still needs us. Come on, Bullseye!
Buzz, you stay here. I'm going with them. You don't think I can do it? Nice poncho.
It's good to see them fighting again.
It's really, I think, a good thing that Hollywood, believe it or not, is giving a positive message for families, for both parents and young people when it comes to getting back to basics for all of us. Media-free mealtime, but also just more time together. Not being together alone in our homes when we're all together in the same house, but one is on a cell phone, the other is on a video game, the other is on the computer, but that we're actually talking, enjoying time together. Nothing like the real thing. We'll be right back. Something beautiful to focus on this week. Feast of St. Peter and Paul, the official day, June 29th. So why do we have a feast day for them together? Well, to answer those questions and to really take a deep dive into these two amazing saints. And when you're in Rome, you pretty much always see them together, especially if you're at the Vatican. It is the one, the only Steve Ray, author, speaker, fearless pilgrimage leader, and also, of course, our friend. And he does so much great work. And he is here to talk about Saints Peter and Paul. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm doing very good, Teresa. Always nice to hear your voice.
And so why do we have a feast day for them together? First question.
Because they were martyred on the same day, on June 29th in roughly 67 A.D. I made a movie on Peter, filmed all on location, and I also filmed another one on Paul, all on location. So I feel like I kind of got to know these guys from where they were born to where they died. And one of the interesting things about them being together is that ancient Rome, everybody knows the story that ancient Rome was founded by two twins, Romulus and Remus.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, it's a myth, but back in the 771 BC. And that is the story in Rome. Everywhere you see the she-wolf with those two twins, Romulus and Remus, drinking the milk. And this is the founding of the Roman Empire. And the way the Christians viewed it is that Peter and Paul were the twins, kind of the same way, not physically twins, but they were the twin brothers who came to Rome, shed their blood, and they founded the Christian Rome, the church in Rome, and established her there. So you've got two sets of twins, one that established the ancient city of Rome, and another set of twins that established the church in Rome, the new Roman Empire, so to speak. So that's why you have them together. They are considered that they shed their blood together on the same day, and they laid the foundation for the Catholic Church. So that's why they're together. And Teresa, one of the funny thing is that when I was a Protestant, I used to kind of think of Paul as the Protestant apostle and Peter as the Catholic apostle. And it played out because I said faith alone, Bible alone, that's Paul, and Peter is the Pope, and that's Catholic. So, and that we would put them as adversaries. And so there is one place where it says that Peter was confronted by Paul. Paul confronted him to his face because he stood condemned. He was being hypocritical. So that there was this attitude that Peter and Paul were hostile to each other, which is not the case at all when you take it all the context. I also wrote a book called Upon This Rock.
Yeah, which is a great book.
Peter and, and in there I show that they were not hostile at all, that Peter was actually considered to be the head of the church. Paul respected that authority, and even when he referred to Peter multiple times, he referred to him as Cephas, which is the word for rock. And so he would say, I went up to Jerusalem to see the rock. If he was enemies, he would have said, I went up to see Simon, his original name, but he didn't. He says, I went up to see the rock. So you could demonstrate from Scripture the great camaraderie and teamwork of these two, and yet Paul still recognized Peter as the head of the church.
Well, quick question. I know we've got some real specifics to get to, but when you saw that in Scripture in your Baptist or non-Catholic days, going up to see the rock, isn't that pretty obvious what was meant in terms of on this rock you shall build my church?
Well, we were looking through Protestant tainted glasses. They're like sunglasses with Protestant tint to them. So everything that we read, I remember even my mom one time saying, I can't understand all the verses. Some of them just don't fit, so I put them on the shelf. Well, what that means is that we viewed, instead of viewing our life and our tradition through the lens of Scripture, as Baptists, I have to say that we interpreted Scripture through the lens of our Baptist tradition. So when you do that, when you wear sunglasses, blue-tinted sunglasses, everything you see looks blue. And when you wear Protestant or Baptist glasses, everything looks Baptist. And so when you read the Bible, things like that don't jump out at you. And if they do, there's always a way to, with great gymnastics and gyrations, work your way around those passages.
Yeah. If you're just joining us on Catholic Connection, having a very wonderful and insightful conversation with Steve Ray, our dear friend who joins us on a regular basis, and you hear him and see him quite a bit on EWTN Radio and TV. His website is CatholicConvert.com. He is an author, he is a speaker, and he is an expert on all things Catholic, a great apologist and a dear friend. Steve, can we talk about, we have about 3 minutes left before the first break, but I want to talk about the two churches where the sites where St. Peter and St. Paul were martyred, because the churches there now are magnificent. Obviously, St. Peter's Basilica, but then there's also, I don't know how many people have been to Tre Fontane. I mean, you've taken us there. That is a really, really powerful spot, too.
I always make sure that we go to Tre Fontane because most people don't even know it exists, and it's the place where Paul was beheaded. The two churches, of course, are over the bones of Peter and over the bones of Paul. They're the two largest churches in Rome. St. Peter's is the largest church in the world, actually, and they're built over the bones of those apostles. So the story of those churches actually begins in 67 AD at their martyrdom, when they were both martyred. I'll just do it real quick because I think we got about 2 minutes left. But Peter and Paul were both in the Mamertine prison, which is in the Roman Forum. And it was a nasty, dank, wicked prison that even Julius Caesar dispensed of his enemies in. It's a cistern under the ground, a hole that you drop them down into this nasty pit. And that's where Peter and Paul spent their last days of their life. And believe me, nobody ever sent a janitorial crew down to clean that place. They were sleeping in years and years of dried excrement from other prisoners, and it was just a horrid place to be. And one misty morning, they were both pulled out together, and they took Peter, because he was not a Roman citizen, and he could be crucified. They took him into Nero's circus, which was on the other side of the Tiber River, which is where St. Peter's is today. And they crucified him upside down. We know right where the spot was. And he was crucified in the shadow of that great obelisk that's in the center of St. Peter's. That obelisk witnessed the martyrdom of Peter, and he was crucified upside down, and he was buried on the hillside there. And later Constantine moved Vatican Hill. He moved it, and he built it over where the ground is of the Vatican now, because that's where Peter was buried. Instead of moving the bones, he moved a whole landscaping, put St. Peter's, and built it over the top of St. Peter's bones. So much for Jesus saying, it will build my church upon you, right? The rock. Now, on the other hand, Paul is taken out of there, down the Via Ostia, outside the city gates on the other side of Rome, and they couldn't crucify him because he was a Roman citizen. So they beheaded him. And Tre Fontane in Italian means three fountains. Yep, and they beheaded Paul out there, and his head bounced 3 times, and each place a fountain of water sprang from the ground. And you can still see those fountains today where they are under 3 altars. And he was buried. Then the Church of St. Paul outside the walls was built over his bones. And I hear the music.
Yep, there you go. Thanks, Steve. We'll be back with more on the lives and, of course, the martyrdom and the feast day, June 29th. Very important feast day as we wrap up the month of June. Steve Ray with us talking about the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul. We'll be right back. Fasten your seatbelts. We are going to get some very exciting news, taking a ride through the lives and the deaths of the great Saints Peter and Paul. Their feast day, very important feast day this week, June 29th. Steve Ray, the one, the only with us, CatholicConvert.com. Author, speaker, fearless pilgrimage leader, and Catholic apologist. All right, so let's talk about how they were similar and different.
Well, they were both very strong Jews, raised in the tradition of the Mosaic law, under the influence of Pharisees and Sadducees and scribes. And they both had a great love for God and for the faith of Israel. But they had very different lives. One was very educated, Paul, and his name was actually Saul. He had 2 names. People think he got a new name, Paul, when he was converted, but that's not the case. He had 2 names from birth. His Roman name was Paul because he had a Roman citizenship through his father. His Jewish name was Saul. He was named after the first king of Israel, who was head and shoulders above all other men in Israel, and very handsome, and he was chosen to be the first king. Funny thing is that even though he was head and shoulders, his namesake, Saul, was a short little guy, and he wasn't very handsome. So that's kind of the funny little thing there. But he had 2 names from birth, a Jewish name and a Roman name. Peter, his name was Simon, from one of the 12 tribes of Israel, Simeon. That's where he got his name. And he had a second name too, but he didn't have that until Jesus called him. And we know that from the first time Jesus met him in John chapter 1, verse 42. He says, "Oh, you will be Cephas. You will be the rock." That's what he told him. And Peter probably looked at the guys and said, what is that? What's he mean by that? What's that all about? But he found out 3 years later when Jesus officially named him Peter the Rock. So he had two names too. They were very different in the sense that, even back in those days, they calculate that roughly 3% of the people were literate. At the most, 10% could sign their name or do a receipt for purchasing a bag of flour or something, but at least 90% of the people were illiterate, and they considered that most of the people up in the Galilee area were illiterate. That's why scribes had such power, because they could read and write, and they had access to these things. That's why they had such clout and such power. But you can think of this. Paul was raised in that world, in the academic world, under Gamaliel, the great rabbi. In fact, they call him Rabbon, which means our rabbi. Even today, he's known as that. And you have here the best and the brightest of the students seated at the foot of the best and the brightest of the rabbis. And whereas Paul smelled like books, Peter smelled like fish. He lived up in Galilee. He was not an academic. He was a businessman. And I think he was a good businessman and a civic leader, because his house was right between the synagogue and the harbor, and he had business of his own. He had partners. He had employees. He owned boats. He was no slouch like we often think of him as. I'm giving a talk at Legatus' summit in February, and it's going to be about Peter the businessman and how he's very different than I think.
Yeah, you've done that for us here before. I love that. And I don't think a lot of people think of it that way in terms of St. Peter being a businessman, right. But you made the point, and I love this, because when he's having that experience with Jesus at my favorite place, the primacy of Peter, he still had his fishing boats. And so you brought up that point about the fishing boats. Yeah.
Yep. And when they counted every one of those stinking fish, 153, and they were pretty obsessed with those fish, because that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why Jesus said, do you love me more than these? Are you going to go back to your old business, or are you going to leave that and follow me now? But so you have one that smells like books and one that smells like fish. But Peter had the qualities of a leader, outspoken, bold, courageous, ready to step out. He had his character flaws as well. And Paul was the same. He was as strong as you could think. He said, according to the law, I was blameless. I'm a Pharisee of Pharisees. I come straight from the blood of the Hebrews. I'm from the tribe of Benjamin, which was the warrior tribe. And don't think Paul wasn't like a warrior. And he's in that academic, and they both had a wonderful pedigree. They both had Jewish pedigree. So they're called Peter to go to the circumcised, which means the Jewish people. He ends up going all up through Asia Minor area, which is today Turkey, and ends up in Rome, where he then establishes the church in Rome. And on the other hand, you've got Paul, who travels all over the place. He was hard to make a movie on, because I had to go to 6 countries just to do his life, because he's in all these countries. But he went all over the place, founding churches and writing and teaching, and then he ends up also in prison in Rome. But then both of them together as brothers, as twins, as highly respecting of each other, they were both taken out and killed on the same day. So that's a little bit about the similarities and the differences. I picture Peter as a big man, a big older man, because it says that he dragged all 153 fish up on the shore by himself, and it makes a point that was a huge catch. And a lot of people think, well, the only way he could have dragged that up on his own would be he's a pretty big and strong guy. Whereas Paul, the only description we have of him is he's probably just a little over 5 feet tall, and he's got bow legs, and he's got a bald head and a beard and a long hooked nose. And it said that he only had one eyebrow. It starts at one side and went all the way across to the other side.
So he wasn't the most attractive of men, right?
No, he wasn't, no. And so, but I see them too physically very different as well, being very physically different. Academically, they were very different. According to their careers and their upbringing and training, one was a scholar, one was a fisherman. But boy, when Jesus called them, they worked together. And the two of those guys together changed the world.
They did.
We only have 2 writings of Peter, but the whole book of the first part of Acts is his sermons, and he's teaching and preaching. Paul, on the other hand, half the books of the New Testament were written by him, and 2 of them were written by his associate Luke, which are the 2 longest books in the New Testament, by the way. Luke and Acts are the 2 longest books written by Paul's associate, and Paul himself wrote more than half of the books of the New Testament.
Well, let me ask you another apologetics question, trying to understand and being able to relate to our non-Catholic brothers and sisters, and as you were once one many years ago. So we know you just mentioned the writers of New Testament, Acts of the Apostles, and those so many letters which they're credited with. But here's the thing. They were working together. That's obvious if you read Scripture. And even though there was less from St. Peter than Paul, it seems that if you talk to a Protestant about the New Testament, they're very Paulian, but they're not very Petrine. Yes. They don't seem to acknowledge St. Peter nearly as much, and barely nearly as much as they acknowledge and talk about St. Paul. And yet they were so important together.
They were, and I would say that, again, those blue-tinted sunglasses, the whole...
Yeah, but what I don't understand is they're so scriptural. They're like, Bible alone, basic instructions before leaving Earth. And so it's like, okay, well, this isn't working for us to be, based on Peter. We have to concentrate on Paul. It doesn't make sense when they kind of move it around to fit their own needs. That's just my perspective,
You're absolutely correct. And I was so impressed, I'll have to say, when I went into the Catholic Mass the first time with the Crestas in the January 1st of 1994, and they came up holding the Gospels. That there wasn't the whole New Testament. They were holding the Gospels up over their head, and they were going to read the Gospels. And in the Catholic Church, the Gospels always hold a place of primacy. Yes, we know the Old Testament is inspired, infallible Word of God, and so are the whole 27 books of the New Testament. But those 4 Gospels are the words of the Lord himself, and those always held primacy. So I always was impressed by that the Catholics did that. The Protestants tend to hold Paul's writings as a primacy, and even to the neglect of the Gospels and the words of the Lord, because Jesus said, if you don't do these things, that you will go into the fires of hell. And but he was just speaking to the Jews, not to the world, so we have to go to Paul to find out what the truth really is. So a lot of times there's that dilemma. And also, as when Peter's often presented as the Pope, as the leader of the church, and with this Catholic emphasis. So a lot of times Protestants, when they see the pendulum swing one way, they view, the Catholics swing that pendulum way over here about Peter. They tend to swing it back the other way. Same with Mary. So the Catholics swing the pendulum over to great honor and reverence for Mary. Protestants tend to swing it the other way and ignore her altogether. So that's, I think, what happens with Peter and Paul. But the reality is that they worked together, they served together. Paul had great respect for Peter, because he even says that I went up to Jerusalem and I didn't see anyone except Cephas, and I received the right hand of fellowship, so that I knew that what I was preaching was true. In other words, even though Jesus had given him the gospel and told him what to preach, he still came to Jerusalem and received the right hand of fellowship, or the imprimatur of the bishops, Peter and the apostles in Rome, before he continued to take his message out. And then when the church in Acts chapter 15, under the leadership of Peter, they made a decision about how Gentiles could be saved without being circumcised. It was the first church council. Paul was there, and Paul was sent by Peter and the apostles to take the letter out to everybody else. So they worked together, and Paul respected the leadership of Peter and the apostles. He said that he was one that was born too late. In other words, I think what he meant by that is, I wish I'd have been born a little earlier. Maybe Jesus would have included me in the 12. But even there, it's a funny thing, Teresa, because a lot of us Baptists thought that choosing Matthias as a replacement for Judas was a big problem, because Jesus had already chosen Paul, but Peter cast lots and jumped the gun.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It really is interesting, though, because of the way, that when Paul became an apostle, because Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus, unlike Peter, who was right there with Jesus in all of his years of his ministry.
Yes. And Paul, it says that he left for 14 years. We don't know where he went. We just know that he was away for 14 years. It says that he went to Arabia, which is where Mount Sinai is. And I think in my movie, I contend with the idea that he actually, during those 14 years in Galatia, he says Mount Sinai is in Arabia, which included Sinai today, by the way, and that Sinai was in Arabia. So I think that Paul went there during those 14 years. God was preparing him and training him. He's already a scholar. He already knows the Old Testament. But sometimes out in the desert is where God really can work in your life. And Moses was in the desert, and he had this great work done in his life. And Paul, I think, also went into the desert for 14 years. Then when he came back, he was in Damascus, and it says that he was praying and they were serving the Lord. And by the way, that word in Greek is liturgio, liturgy. The servant, the work of the people. That's right there in Acts chapter 13. And from there, it says that they laid hands on him and Barnabas, and they sent them out. It's so interesting. He says, set apart for me Saul and Barnabas. That's what the word Pharisee means. Paul was a Pharisee. Now he's being set apart as a real Pharisee, and send them out. That's what apostle means, one who is sent. So right there in one verse, you have the word Pharisee and apostle. Jesus is turning Paul into a real Pharisee, and he's sending him out as an apostle. And now he's working side by side with Peter, although they went in their different directions. They had the same Lord, the same gospel. They all had one baptism, and they worked together as a team, all of them.
Yeah, and the churches, too, are just so important. And I want to encourage people, well, to get your books, go to your website, CatholicComfort.com, because especially in your book, Upon This Rock. But when they come to Italy, to make sure they give themselves enough time for St. Peter's and, of course, St. Paul outside the walls. Steve, this went by way too fast. Look forward to our next interview. Our very own Steve Ray, CatholicComfort.com, on the important feast day this week of Saints Peter and Paul. Pray for us. Hope you enjoyed that. I always like to have Steve on because he has so much detail and has so much depth, and he never is a dull interview. I'm telling you, he's always excited about the faith, and he always has so much to share, and he always has a different angle as a guest. He's very creative in giving us really great segment ideas to help us all learn more and grow in our faith. If you want to be encouraged as a parent or a grandparent, you might want to think about taking your children to see the Toy Story movie. It did really well at the box office this weekend, and according to folks in my family, it has a very, very good message about the importance of family time and getting back to basics. So, anyway, just throwing that out there. All right, Vanessa Denhak-Armo, the wonderful V, as I call her, is filling in for me tomorrow because I will be presenting at the EWTN Academy for the young professional journalists and college students who are attending the Academy this summer. I'm very excited about that and appreciate her sitting in. She's going to be talking to Father Sean Davison on his Prophet of Fire book, and then we're also going to be chatting with our friends at the affiliate down in Atlanta, Quest Radio. They have a booth at the FIFA games. How fun is that? And then in addition to all that stuff, which will be a great time, we are going to also hear from Robert McNamara, who is going to be talking with Vanessa about Edith Stein, also known as St. Teresa Benedicta, one of my favorites. And they're going to be discussing how much she loved about St. Thomas Aquinas. And she was considered a Thomist. So that's pretty exciting and very interesting. And St. Teresa Benedicta is a powerhouse. It's going to be a great show tomorrow with V. And God willing, talk to you back on a Thursday. Have a great Wednesday. Ciao, ciao.